Imagine returning home after years away, only to find your entire colony vanished, houses empty, fires cold, not a single soul in sight. This was the horrifying reality for English settlers in 1590, when they returned to Roanoke Island and discovered that more than 100 men, women, and children had simply disappeared. Only one word was carved into a wooden post: CROATOAN. In the spring of 1587, the docks of Plymouth, England, buzzed with a nervous energy. This was Sir Walter Raleigh's second attempt to plant the English flag permanently in the New World. His first, a military outpost on Roanoke Island, had ended in failure and retreat. But this time was different. This wasn't an army, it was a community. Over 110 men, women, and children boarded 3 small ships, their eyes fixed on the western horizon. They were led by John White, an artist and cartographer who had documented the previous expedition, now returning as governor, with his own daughter and newborn granddaughter among the hopeful colonists. Their destination was Chesapeake Bay, a place John White's earlier reconnaissance had identified as far more suitable for a settlement. They carried with them the quintessential English dream of a new Eden, a land of abundance, free from the rigid class structures and religious strife of home. But the Atlantic is a cruel gatekeeper to such dreams. For months, they were tossed by violent storms and stalked by disease in the suffocating confines of their ships. The promise of a fertile new world felt impossibly distant, a faint whisper against the roar of the ocean. Their ordeal at sea was only the beginning. In a fateful and still debated decision, the fleet's pilot refused to sail on to the Chesapeake, forcing the colonists ashore at the one place they sought to avoid: the abandoned settlement on Roanoke Island. They arrived far too late in the season to plant crops, their meager supplies already dwindling. Worse, they inherited a legacy of violence. The previous English soldiers had alienated the local CROATOAN people, and the new arrivals were met not with curiosity, but with deep-seated suspicion. Within days, a colonist was found dead, shot with arrows while crabbing alone. The dream was rapidly souring into a nightmare. Fear and desperation took hold. With winter approaching and no hope of a harvest, the settlers pleaded with their governor to undertake the perilous journey back to England for help. For John White, it was an agonizing choice. He would have to leave behind his entire family, his daughter Eleanor and his granddaughter Virginia, the first English child born in the Americas. He reluctantly agreed, promising a swift return. As his ship disappeared over the horizon, he had no way of knowing that his promise would be impossible to keep. England was on the brink of war. The Spanish Armada was assembling, and every available ship was conscripted for a desperate defense of the realm. The fate of 115 souls on a remote island was suddenly a tragically low priority. John White's planned relief mission was delayed for 3 long, agonizing years. 3 long years. That's how long John White was separated from his colony, his daughter, and his newborn granddaughter. His return was delayed by the monumental conflict between England and Spain. Every available ship was conscripted to face the Spanish Armada. When he finally secured passage back, it was on a privateering expedition, a far from ideal rescue mission. As his ship approached Roanoke Island in August 1590, his heart must have pounded with a mixture of hope and dread. From the sea, the landing party saw a plume of smoke rising from the island, a potential sign of life. But upon investigation, it was just a wildfire, the first of many crushing disappointments. When White finally reached the site of the settlement, an unnerving quiet had fallen. The place was utterly silent. The scene was deeply unsettling, not for what was there, but for what wasn't. There were no bodies, no skeletons, no signs of a struggle or a desperate last stand. The houses had been neatly dismantled, their contents removed, suggesting an orderly departure, not a panicked flight. The defensive palisade that once encircled the settlement was also gone, carefully taken down. This wasn't the aftermath of an attack. It was an abandonment. And then, the only clues. Carved into a post at the entrance to the former fort was a single cryptic word: CROATOAN. On another tree nearby, the letters CRO were etched into the bark. Crucially, White had left the colonists with a specific instruction. If they were forced to leave in distress, they were to carve a Maltese cross above their destination. There was no cross. This suggested the colonists had left willingly, perhaps even hopefully. The word was not a complete mystery to White. He immediately believed it referred to CROATOAN Island, about 50 miles south, known today as Hatteras Island. This was the home of the CROATOAN people, a local tribe led by a man named Monteo. Montejo was a crucial ally to the English, having traveled to England twice and been baptized into the Anglican faith. He was a bridge between two worlds. For the colonists, seeking refuge with Montejo's people would have been a logical, even life-saving, decision. To White, the carving was a message of survival, a breadcrumb leading him to his family. Hope surged through him. He had to get to CROATOAN Island, but the treacherous waters of the Outer Banks, the infamous graveyard of the Atlantic, had other plans. As his ships attempted to weigh anchor, a ferocious late-season hurricane descended upon them. The storm's fury was immense, snapping a critical anchor cable and nearly dashing one of the vessels against the shore. His crew, already on edge from the perilous journey, refused to risk another landing. The mission was aborted. Fierce storms and a near mutiny forced him back to sea before he could even begin his search. The plan was to sail for the Caribbean to wait out the winter and return in the spring, but the storm blew them far off course. White was forced to return to England, defeated. He would spend the rest of his days trying to finance another voyage, writing letters and pleading for help, but he would never again set foot in the New World. He never saw the 117 men, women and children he had left behind, and he never saw his family again, his daughter, Eleanor, or his granddaughter, Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the Americas. John White died in Ireland around 1606, haunted by the silence and the single unanswered word left behind on that desolate shore. If you love mysteries like this one, The Stories History Left Behind, make sure to subscribe and join our community of explorers uncovering the unknown every week. The year is 1590. A supply ship delayed by war finally arrives at Roanoke Island to find nothing. The settlement is gone, the houses, carefully dismantled, the 117 men, women and children have vanished without a trace. The only clue? A single, cryptic word carved into a wooden post. This is where the historical record ends, and one of America's most enduring mysteries begins. So what really happened to the Lost Colony of Roanoke? The most widely accepted theory points directly to that carving. CROATOAN. This wasn't a random word. It was the name of a nearby island and the Algonquian-speaking tribe who lived there. The colonists had established friendly relations with the CROATOAN people. Before leaving for England, Governor John White had arranged a signal. If the colonists had to leave in distress, they would carve a Maltese cross above their destination. No cross was ever found. This suggests a planned, peaceful relocation. As historian Dr. Evelyn Reed posits, the evidence points not to a tragedy, but to a survival story. Facing starvation and uncertainty, joining a friendly established community would have been the most logical choice. This theory is bolstered by modern science. The Lumbee tribe of North Carolina has long held an oral tradition that they are descendants of the Roanoke settlers. Recent DNA projects have sought to find a definitive genetic link, turning a historical mystery into a living investigation. But another compelling theory suggests the colonists followed a different plan entirely. White had also discussed moving the colony 50 miles into the Maine, inland, away from the harsh coastal weather. Proponents argue the colonists simply executed this plan, venturing into the dense wilderness. Their fate in this scenario is a grim one. They could have succumbed to unknown diseases or tragically stumbled into the territory of a hostile tribe. The controversial Dare Stones, a series of inscribed rocks discovered in the 1930s, supposedly tell a tragic story of the colonists' demise inland, feeding the idea of a desperate struggle for survival. Then there is the shadow of imperial conflict. In the late 16th century, England and Spain were bitter rivals. The Roanoke colony was a strategic foothold in a region Spain considered its own, a potential base for English privateers to raid Spanish treasure fleets. The Spanish were well aware of the English presence and had destroyed a French colony years earlier. Could a Spanish fleet have sailed north, found the fledgling settlement, and wiped it out, leaving no survivors? While Spanish archives contain no definitive record of such an attack, the fear was very real for the isolated colonists. Of course, where history fails, folklore thrives. Some legends claim the land itself was cursed, and the colonists were consumed by an ancient force for trespassing on sacred ground. In these tales, CROATOAN is not a destination, but the name of a vengeful spirit. These stories paint a terrifying picture of a settlement driven mad by unseen horrors, or spirited away to another realm entirely, their ghosts left to wander the shores forever. The word's eerie power didn't end in 1590. It has echoed through time, attaching itself to other strange disappearances. It's rumored to have been found in the logbook of Amelia Earhart after her plane vanished. The crew of the ghost ship disappeared near Cape Hatteras, with some tales linking the mystery back to the old word. Even Edgar Allan Poe is tied to the legend. These connections, whether fact or folklore, have cemented CROATOAN in our cultural consciousness as a symbol of ultimate mystery, a question mark carved into the heart of history. Modern archaeologists have uncovered fragments, tools, pottery, and European artifacts, scattered miles from the original site, suggesting at least some colonists survived. Genetic studies are ongoing to find potential descendants among local tribes, but no definitive evidence has ever revealed their fate. It's as if Roanoke simply vanished from time. The trees, the sand, and the wind still whisper the same haunting question: where did they go? Over 400 years later, Roanoke remains America's oldest unsolved mystery, a story that began with hope and ended in silence. Do you believe the colonists survived, or were they erased by something far darker? Tell me your theory in the comments, and if you crave more mysteries like this, you already know what to do. Hit that subscribe button and join the journey.